Lionheart's opening silverback and the 10 great assassins moved like shadows, silently and swiftly, to attack the wrestling bear's headquarters from the darkness. The night was void of moon and stars, casting a thick veil of darkness perfect for stealthy warriors. Their silent footsteps moved through the night, targeting their objective. Lionheart, leading the group, initiated the attack with the precision and grace of a seasoned warrior. Approaching the main gate, where the first line of defense of the wrestling bear was stationed, Lionheart moved with an almost ethereal silence. The dim light from the torches on the walls barely illuminated the vague silhouettes, but it was enough for Lionheart to see his targets clearly. Without a sound, Lionheart drew his 2 short sabers. The blades glinted menacingly in the faint light, reflecting the flickering flames of the torches. His movements were fluid and calculated, each step bringing him closer to the unsuspecting guards. As he closed the distance, Lionheart's muscles tensed, ready to spring into action. He took a deep breath, his eyes narrowing with focus. In one swift motion, he lunged forward, his sword slicing through the air with deadly precision. The first guard didn't even have time to react, as Lionheart's blades found their mark, cutting through flesh and bone with ease. The second guard, alerted by the sudden movement, turned just in time to see Lionheart's cold, determined gaze. Before he could raise his weapon, Lionheart was upon him, his short swords dancing in the torchlight. The guard's eyes widened in shock as Lionheart's blades cut through the air, striking with lethal accuracy. Lionheart moved with the speed and grace of a predator, his short swords weaving a deadly pattern around him. Each strike was precise, each movement efficient. He danced through the ranks of the wrestling bear's defenders, his blades leaving a trail of blood and destruction in their wake. The remaining guards, realizing the imminent threat, tried to sound the alarm, but Lionheart was too fast. He reached the alarm bell just as a guard's hand touched the rope, slicing through the rope with one of his swords before delivering a fatal blow to the guard's throat. Lionheart's assault was relentless. His short swords moved in a blur, cutting down anyone who dared to stand in his way. The first line of defense crumbled under his attack, the guards falling one by one to his deadly blades. With each enemy he defeated, Lionheart's confidence grew, his determination to see the mission through to the end burning brighter than ever. As the last of the guards fell, Lionheart paused for a moment, his chest heaving with exertion. He glanced back at his comrades, nodding to signal that the path was clear. With the first line of defense neutralized, the way was now open for the rest of the 10 great assassins to move in and continue their assault. Lionheart's opening attack was a testament to his skill and prowess as a warrior. His precision, speed, and deadly efficiency had paved the way for the 10 great assassins, setting the stage for the battle that was about to unfold. Panthera's fierce assault. With the first line of defense shattered by Lionheart's deadly precision, it was time for Panthera to unleash his might upon the wrestling bear's headquarters. The air was thick with tension, the scent of blood mingling with the smoke from the burning torches. The darkness of the night provided the perfect cover for the next wave of the 10 great assassins' assault. Panthera moved forward, his tall, muscular frame cutting a formidable silhouette against the flickering light. He carried a long sword, a weapon he wielded with unparalleled skill and ferocity. His eyes, cold and focused, scanned the surroundings, assessing the remaining defenses with a predator's instinct. As Panthera approached the inner courtyard, he could see a group of wrestling bear warriors hastily forming a defensive line. They had heard the commotion caused by Lionheart's attack and were preparing to defend their stronghold. Panthera's lips curled into a grim smile. These men were about to face a force unlike anything they had ever encountered. Without a word, Panthera charged forward, his sword held high. The wrestling bear warriors barely had time to react before Panthera was upon them. His first strike was a powerful overhead slash, aimed at a burly guard who had stepped forward to challenge him. The man's eyes widened in shock as Panthera's sword cleaved through his weapon and into his shoulder, dropping him to the ground with a single, devastating blow. Panthera's movements were a blur of lethal efficiency. He swung his sword with a combination of brute strength and masterful technique, each strike designed to maximize damage and minimize effort. The wrestling bear warriors, though well-trained and courageous, found themselves overwhelmed by Panthera's sheer force. A particularly brave warrior lunged at Panthera with a spear, hoping to catch him off guard. Panthera sidestepped the attack with ease, his sword slicing through the spear's shaft before driving into the man's chest. The warrior gasped, blood spilling from his mouth as he collapsed. Panthera continued his relentless assault, his long sword cutting through the defenders like a scythe through wheat. He moved with a fluid grace, his every motion a testament to years of rigorous training and countless battles. The courtyard became a scene of chaos and bloodshed, Panthera's sword flashing in the torchlight as he decimated the wrestling bear's ranks. One of the defenders, a tall man with a scar running down his face, managed to block Panthera's strike with his shield. For a moment, it seemed as though he might be able to hold his ground. But Panthera, undeterred, followed up with a quick, brutal kick that shattered the man's knee. As the defender fell to the ground, Panthera's sword descended, ending his life in a single, merciful stroke. The remaining wrestling bear warriors, seeing their comrades fall one by one, began to waver. Panthera pressed his advantage, his sword never pausing. He knew that demoralizing the enemy was just as important as defeating them physically. His ruthless efficiency and the carnage he wrought sent a clear message. Resistance was futile. As the last of the defenders fell, Panthera stood amidst the bodies, his chest heaving with exertion. Blood dripped from his sword, pooling at his feet. He looked around, ensuring that no threats remained. Satisfied, he signaled to his comrades that the inner courtyard was secure. Panthera's attack had been swift and devastating, a testament to his prowess as a warrior. His strength and skill had paved the way for the next phase of the assault, bringing the 10 great assassins one step closer to their ultimate goal. With the inner defenses broken, the path was now open for the rest of the team to move in and finish what they had started. Cobra's stealthy strike, with Lionheart and Panthera having decimated the outer defenses and the inner courtyard of the Wrestling Bears headquarters, it was now Cobra's turn to advance the attack. The darkened corridors and shadowy corners of the stronghold provided the perfect environment for Cobra, the master of stealth and silent killing. Cobra moved like a wraith, his sword in hand, ready to strike at a moment's notice. His eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned every inch of the hallway ahead. He had trained for years to master the art of silent movement and precise strikes, making him one of the most feared assassins in the 10 Great Assassins. The Wrestling Bears headquarters, now a chaotic battleground, had several layers of defense. The remaining warriors, though scattered and demoralized, were still a threat. Cobra's mission was to eliminate key targets and sow further confusion among the defenders. As he moved through the shadows, Cobra spotted a small group of Wrestling Bear warriors gathered around a makeshift barricade. They were discussing their next move, unaware of the silent predator lurking nearby. Cobra's lips curled into a predatory grin as he approached, his body blending seamlessly with the darkness. In a flash, Cobra struck. His sword slashed through the air, cutting down the first warrior before the man could even cry out. The remaining warriors turned, shock and fear etched on their faces, but Cobra was already in motion. His movements were fluid and deadly, his blade a blur as it found its marks with lethal precision. One of the warriors managed to draw his weapon and lunged at Cobra, but Cobra sidestepped the attack with ease. He brought his sword down in a swift arc, slicing through the man's armor and ending his life. The remaining defenders, seeing their comrades fall so quickly, tried to retreat, but Cobra was relentless. He pursued them through the narrow corridors, his sword striking with unerring accuracy. Each swing of his blade was a death sentence, each movement a testament to his skill. The sound of steel slicing through flesh and the gurgled cries of the dying filled the air, a grim symphony of Cobra's deadly work. As he moved deeper into the stronghold, Cobra encountered more resistance. A group of seasoned Wrestling Bear warriors had formed a defensive line, determined to stop the invaders. They were armed and ready, their eyes filled with determination. But Cobra was undeterred. He approached slowly, his sword held low, his eyes locked onto his targets. The warriors braced themselves for an attack, but Cobra had no intention of a frontal assault. Instead, he used the shadows to his advantage, slipping into a side passage and flanking the defenders. In an instant, Cobra was upon them. He struck with lightning speed, his sword flashing in the dim light. The first warrior fell with a silent scream, blood spurting from a deep gash in his neck. The others turned to face this new threat, but Cobra was already moving, his blade a blur of deadly steel. One by one, the defenders fell. Cobra's strikes were precise and deadly, each one finding its mark with unerring accuracy. The last warrior, a burly man with a scarred face, managed to block Cobra's initial strike. For a moment, it seemed as though he might hold his ground. But Cobra was relentless. He feinted to the left, drawing the man's guard, then struck from the right, his blade slicing through the warrior's defenses and into his side. The man gasped, his eyes widening in shock, then collapsed to the ground. With the defenders neutralized, Cobra moved on. He had one final target, the command center of the Wrestling Bear's stronghold. This was where the leaders would be, coordinating the defense and trying to rally their remaining forces. Cobra knew that eliminating them would be a significant blow to the Wrestling Bear's morale and fighting capability. Wolfbane's ferocious attack with Lionheart, Panthera, and Cobra having paved the way, it was now Wolfbane's turn to further dismantle the defenses of the Wrestling Bear's stronghold. Known for his brute strength and unmatched ferocity, Wolfbane was eager to unleash his wrath upon the enemies. Armed with a single, formidable broadsword, he embodied raw power and unrelenting force. The atmosphere inside the Wrestling Bear's headquarters was tense, the air thick with smoke and the sounds of clashing steel. Wolfbane moved through the corridors with purpose, his heavy footsteps echoing ominously. He was a force of nature, a hurricane of destruction, ready to tear through anything in his path. As he approached a fortified section of the stronghold, Wolfbane encountered a group of heavily armed Wrestling Bear warriors. They had taken up defensive positions, their faces grim and determined. They knew who he was and what he was capable of, but they stood their ground, ready to defend their territory to the last breath. Wolfbane's eyes blazed with anticipation. He raised his broadsword high, the blade glinting in the flickering torchlight. With a thunderous roar, he charged forward, swinging his sword with incredible power. The first clash was explosive, his blade meeting the shields and weapons of the defenders with a resounding crash. The sheer force of Wolfbane's attack sent shockwaves through the enemy ranks. He swung his broadsword with wild abandon, each strike carrying the weight of a battering ram. The defenders struggled to hold their ground, but Wolfbane's strength was overwhelming. Shields splintered, and weapons shattered under the relentless onslaught. One by one, the Wrestling Bear warriors fell. Wolfbane's broadsword cut through their defenses like a hot knife through butter. He moved with surprising speed for someone of his size, his attacks a blur of deadly steel. Blood sprayed in all directions as his blade found its marks, slicing through armor and flesh with terrifying ease. A particularly large and burly warrior stepped forward to challenge Wolfbane. He wielded a massive axe, his muscles straining as he swung it with all his might. But Wolfbane was unfazed. He parried the axe with his broadsword, the impact sending a shower of sparks into the air. With a quick, brutal counterattack, he sliced through the warrior's defenses and buried his sword deep in the man's chest. The other defenders, seeing their strongest fighter fall, began to waver. Fear crept into their eyes as Wolfbane advanced, his broadsword dripping with blood. He showed no mercy, cutting down anyone who dared to stand in his way. The corridor was soon littered with the bodies of the fallen, a grim testament to Wolfbane's ferocity. As he moved deeper into the stronghold, Wolfbane encountered another group of Wrestling Bear warriors. These were elite fighters, handpicked for their skill and bravery. They formed a tight formation, hoping to trap Wolfbane and overwhelm him with their combined strength. But Wolfbane was not easily trapped. He charged at the formation, his broadsword swinging in wide arcs. The defenders tried to block his attacks, but the sheer power behind each strike was too much. Wolfbane's blade crashed through their defenses, scattering the formation and sending warriors sprawling to the ground. In the chaos, Wolfbane spotted the leader of the group, a grizzled veteran with a scarred face. He was issuing commands, trying to rally his men. Wolfbane zeroed in on him, his eyes blazing with determination. With a roar, he leapt forward, bringing his broadsword down in a powerful overhead strike. The veteran managed to block the first strike, but the force of the blow nearly knocked him off his feet. Wolfbane pressed the attack, his strikes relentless and unyielding. The veteran fought back valiantly, but he was no match for Wolfbane's raw power. With a final, devastating swing, Wolfbane's broadsword cleaved through the veteran's defenses and struck him down. The remaining defenders, seeing their leader fall, lost the will to fight. They broke ranks and fled, their morale shattered by Wolfbane's ferocity. Wolfbane watched them go, a savage grin on his face. The path was now clear for the rest of the 10 great assassins to advance. Hawkeye's tactical assault. As the chaos and destruction created by Wolfbane's ferocious assault reverberated through the wrestling bear stronghold, it was time for Hawkeye to deploy his precision-based tactics. Known for his sharp vision and extraordinary skill with a chain weapon, Hawkeye moved through the shadows, his senses attuned to the slightest movements around him. Hawkeye's chain was a deadly instrument, capable of delivering swift, precise strikes. He moved silently, his eyes constantly scanning for targets and threats. The wrestling bear warriors were on high alert, their nerves frayed by the brutal onslaught they had just endured. They regrouped in small clusters, trying to form a coherent defense against the relentless assault of the 10 great assassins. Hawkeye's first target was a group of warriors guarding a narrow corridor leading to the inner sanctum of the stronghold. He watched them from a hidden vantage point, calculating the best approach. With a flick of his wrist, he sent his chain snaking through the air, the metal links glinting in the dim light. The chain wrapped around the neck of the nearest guard, pulling him off balance and choking off his cries. Before the others could react, Hawkeye yanked the chain back, using the momentum to deliver a powerful kick to another guard's chest. The force of the blow sent the guard crashing into the wall, his breath knocked out of him. The remaining guards turned to face this new threat, but Hawkeye was already in motion. He swung his chain in a wide arc, the metal links whistling through the air. The guards tried to block the attack with their weapons, but the chain wrapped around their arms, disarming them with a swift, practiced motion. Hawkeye followed up with a series of rapid strikes, the chain lashing out with lethal precision. Each blow was calculated, each movement designed to incapacitate rather than kill, though the injuries inflicted were severe. The guards fell one by one, unable to withstand the relentless assault. Hawkeye moved with the grace and efficiency of a predator, his chain an extension of his will. He dodged their desperate attacks, countering with brutal efficiency. Within moments, the corridor was littered with the bodies of the fallen guards, groaning in pain or unconscious. With the immediate threat neutralized, Hawkeye advanced deeper into the stronghold. He encountered another group of warriors in a large, open hall. These were elite fighters, better equipped and more experienced than the previous guards. They stood ready, their eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. Hawkeye took a deep breath, his mind focused and clear. He knew that a direct confrontation would be risky, so he opted for a more tactical approach. He circled around the hall, using the columns and shadows for cover. The elite warriors tensed, sensing his presence but unable to pinpoint his location. Suddenly, Hawkeye sprang into action. He launched his chain across the hall, the metal links wrapping around a beam overhead. Using the chain as a swing, he propelled himself into the midst of the elite warriors, catching them off guard. He landed with a powerful kick, knocking one warrior to the ground. The others reacted quickly, but Hawkeye was already in motion. He swung his chain in a tight arc, aiming for their legs. The chain struck with a loud crack, sweeping the legs out from under two warriors. They fell hard, their weapons clattering to the ground. Hawkeye didn't give them a chance to recover. He spun the chain around his body, creating a whirling barrier of steel that deflected their desperate attacks. One of the elite warriors managed to land a glancing blow with his sword, but Hawkeye twisted away, using the chain to disarm his opponent. He followed up with a quick strike to the head, knocking the warrior out cold. The remaining fighters tried to regroup, but Hawkeye's relentless assault left them no room to maneuver. With a final powerful swing, Hawkeye's chain wrapped around the neck of the last standing warrior. He pulled tight, cutting off the man's air supply and forcing him to drop his weapon. The warrior struggled for a moment before collapsing to the ground, unconscious. Tiger Claw's assault. The night was pitch black, shrouded in a dense fog that wrapped around the wrestling bear stronghold like a cloak. The ground was littered with the remnants of earlier battles, and the air was thick with the smell of smoke and blood. As the elite members of the 10 Great Assassins advanced through the shadows, Tiger Claw took his position, his chain weapon coiled and ready. Tiger Claw was a formidable figure, his presence exuding a sense of danger and lethal precision. His chain, an extension of his own power, glinted menacingly in the dim light. With Hawkeye having cleared a path, it was now Tiger Claw's turn to engage the enemy, ensuring no resistance remained behind. The entrance to the inner courtyard of the Wrestling Bear stronghold was heavily guarded. The sentinels stood vigilant, their eyes scanning the surroundings for any sign of the intruders. But Tiger Claw moved like a phantom, silent and unseen. He advanced with the grace of a predator, each step calculated and deliberate. As he approached the first group of guards, Tiger Claw unleashed his chain with a swift, fluid motion. The links whirled through the air, wrapping around the neck of the closest guard. With a sharp pull, Tiger Claw yanked the guard off his feet, silencing him before he could raise the alarm. The other guards turned, weapons drawn, but Tiger Claw was already in motion. He swung his chain in a wide arc, the metal links hissing through the air. The guards tried to block the attack, but the chain coiled around their weapons, disarming them with a powerful twist. Tiger Claw moved with deadly efficiency, his chain striking with the precision of a serpent. Each attack was measured, designed to incapacitate and overwhelm. One guard, braver than the rest, lunged at Tiger Claw with a spear. Tiger Claw sidestepped the thrust, his chain snapping out to entangle the spear's shaft. With a quick, forceful yank, he pulled the guard off balance, then delivered a crushing kick to the man's chest. The guard collapsed, gasping for breath, as Tiger Claw continued his relentless assault. Two more guards charged at Tiger Claw from either side, hoping to flank him. But Tiger Claw was ready. He spun on his heel, his chain whipping out to catch one guard across the face, the impact sending the man sprawling. The second guard managed to get close, swinging a heavy mace. But Tiger Claw parried the blow with his chain, then followed up with a swift, brutal punch that shattered the guard's jaw. With the outer defenses neutralized, Tiger Claw advanced deeper into the stronghold. The inner courtyard was more open, with fewer places to hide. He knew the remaining guards would be more alert, more prepared. But Tiger Claw thrived in such conditions, his skills honed for direct confrontation. He spotted a squad of elite guards assembling near the main hall, their leader barking orders. Tiger Claw crouched low, moving from shadow to shadow until he was within striking distance. Then, with a fierce battle cry, he launched his attack. The chain flew from his hand, wrapping around the leg of the nearest guard. Tiger Claw pulled hard, sending the guard crashing to the ground. The others reacted swiftly, spreading out to surround him. But Tiger Claw was already in the midst of them, his chain lashing out in all directions. He moved with a combination of strength and agility, his chain a blur of motion. One guard managed to land a glancing blow on Tiger Claw's shoulder, but the assassin shrugged it off, his focus unbroken. He countered with a powerful strike to the guard's temple, sending him reeling. The squad leader, seeing his men fall, stepped forward to engage Tiger Claw directly. He wielded a longsword with practiced skill, his movements precise and disciplined. Tiger Claw met his attack head-on, his chain deflecting the blade with a shower of sparks. The two warriors circled each other, searching for an opening. The leader lunged, his sword aiming for Tiger Claw's heart. Tiger Claw twisted aside, the blade slicing through the air inches from his chest. He countered with a quick flick of his wrist, the chain snapping out to catch the leader's arm. With a powerful yank, Tiger Claw pulled the leader off balance, then struck with a devastating punch to the ribs. The leader staggered, clutching his side, but managed to stay on his feet. Tiger Claw pressed his advantage, his attacks relentless. The leader fought back valiantly, but Tiger Claw's speed and strength were overwhelming. With a final brutal strike, Tiger Claw's chain wrapped around the leader's neck, squeezing tight. The leader's eyes widened in shock and pain as he struggled to break free, but Tiger Claw's grip was unyielding. As the leader fell to the ground, gasping for air, the remaining guards hesitated. Their morale shattered. They glanced at each other in uncertainty. Tiger Claw saw the fear in their eyes and knew the battle was won. He let out a triumphant roar, the sound echoing through the courtyard. The guards, seeing their leader defeated and their comrades lying wounded or dead, turned and fled. Tiger Claw watched them go, his chain coiling back into his hand. He took a moment to catch his breath, then turned his attention to the main hall. The way was clear for the rest of the 10 great assassins to advance. Tiger Claw's assault had been swift and merciless, a testament to his prowess as a warrior. He had cleared a path through the wrestling bear's defenses, paving the way for the final strike. As he moved to rejoin his comrades, Tiger Claw felt a surge of pride and determination. The battle was not yet over, but the 10 great assassins were one step closer to victory. Scorpio's assault. The night was thick with tension as the 10 great assassins advanced upon the wrestling bear stronghold. The earlier assaults had paved the way, but the battle was far from over. Now it was Scorpio's turn to engage the enemy. Armed with his formidable staff, he moved with a predator's grace, every muscle coiled and ready to strike. Scorpio was a master of the staff, his weapon an extension of his own body. He had trained for years, perfecting each move until it became second nature. Tonight, his skills would be put to the ultimate test. The inner courtyard of the stronghold was now within sight. The guards had regrouped, forming a defensive line in a last-ditch effort to repel the invaders. Scorpio could see the determination in their eyes, but he knew that determination alone would not be enough. As he approached, Scorpio's staff twirled in his hands, creating a blur of motion. He moved swiftly, his feet barely touching the ground, and then he struck. With a powerful leap, Scorpio launched himself into the midst of the guards, his staff coming down like a thunderbolt. The impact was immediate and devastating, sending the nearest guard sprawling to the ground. The other guards reacted quickly, closing in around him, but Scorpio was already in motion. His staff whirled through the air, striking with precision and force. He aimed for vital points, disarming and disabling his opponents with each calculated blow. One guard lunged at Scorpio with a spear, but Scorpio sidestepped the attack, his staff sweeping low to knock the guard's legs out from under him. The guard hit the ground hard, his weapon clattering away. Scorpio followed up with a swift strike to the guard's chest, ensuring he would not rise again. Another guard came at Scorpio with a sword, slashing wildly. Scorpio blocked the strike with his staff, the weapons clashing with a sharp ring. He twisted his staff, locking the sword in place, then drove the end of the staff into the guard's stomach. The guard doubled over, gasping for breath, and Scorpio finished him with a quick blow to the back of the head. Scorpio moved through the guards like a force of nature, his staff a blur of deadly motion. He struck with both ends of the staff, each attack flowing seamlessly into the next. A guard tried to catch him from behind, but Scorpio spun around, his staff sweeping in a wide arc to knock the guard's weapon aside. He followed up with a series of rapid strikes, each one finding its mark and leaving his opponent reeling. The guards were skilled and determined, but they were no match for Scorpio's prowess. He fought with a cold precision, his mind focused solely on the battle. Each movement was deliberate, each strike designed to incapacitate. The guards began to falter, their confidence eroding under the relentless assault. Scorpio's assault was relentless, but he remained calm and controlled. He parried a sword thrust with one end of his staff, then drove the other end into the guard's jaw with a sickening crunch. Another guard tried to tackle him, but Scorpio sidestepped and brought his staff down on the back of the guard's neck, dropping him instantly. Despite their training, the guards were being overwhelmed. Scorpio's speed and agility allowed him to stay one step ahead, and his staff gave him the reach and versatility to keep his opponents at bay. The guards were forced to fall back, their line breaking under the pressure. As the guards retreated, Scorpio pressed his advantage. He advanced with measured steps, his staff ready to strike. The guards were disorganized now, their formation shattered. Scorpio moved in for the kill, his strikes becoming more aggressive. One guard, more desperate than the others, charged at Scorpio with a knife. Scorpio deflected the attack with a flick of his staff, then spun around to deliver a crushing blow to the guard's temple. The guard dropped to the ground, unconscious before he even hit the floor. The remaining guards began to panic, their morale crumbling. They had never faced an opponent like Scorpio, and the realization of their imminent defeat was dawning on them. Scorpio could see the fear in their eyes, and he knew the battle was nearly won. With a final, decisive sweep of his staff, Scorpio cleared the remaining guards from his path. They fell back, their weapons clattering to the ground as they turned and fled. Scorpio watched them go, his chest heaving from exertion, but his eyes were cold and calculating. The path to the inner sanctum of the Wrestling Bear stronghold was now clear. Scorpio had carved a way through the enemy's defenses with skill and precision. He took a moment to catch his breath, then turned to signal the rest of the 10 great assassins. The battle was not yet over, but they were one step closer to their goal. Scorpio's assault had been swift and merciless, a testament to his skill and discipline. He had faced overwhelming odds and emerged victorious, paving the way for the final strike. As he rejoined his comrades, Scorpio felt a surge of pride and determination. The Wrestling Bear stronghold would fall, and the 10 great assassins would emerge triumphant. Bearclaw's assault. The tension in the air was palpable as Bearclaw prepared to launch his assault on the Wrestling Bear stronghold. The earlier attacks by his comrades had created a path. Bearclaw, with his imposing stature and formidable weapon, a long spear, was ready to break through the lines of defense. Bearclaw stood at the edge of the battlefield, his spear glinting in the dim light. His eyes were fixed on the enemy ahead, calculating his moves. With a deep breath, he tightened his grip on the spear and charged forward, his massive form a blur of motion. As he approached the first line of defenders, Bearclaw swung his spear in a wide arc, the blade slicing through the air with a deadly whistle. The first guard barely had time to react before the spear struck, cutting through his armor and sending him crashing to the ground. Bearclaw's strength was undeniable, and each swing of his spear carried the force of a sledgehammer. The guards quickly regrouped, trying to form a defensive line, but Bearclaw was relentless. He thrust his spear forward, the sharp tip piercing through shields and armor with ease. One guard attempted to block the attack, but Bearclaw twisted the spear, wrenching the shield from his grasp and following up with a powerful thrust that sent the guard sprawling. Bearclaw moved with surprising agility for someone of his size. He spun the spear around, using the haft to knock aside weapons and trip up his opponents. A guard came at him with a sword, but Bearclaw parried the blow with the spear's shaft and then jabbed the tip into the guard's chest, the impact lifting the guard off his feet before he fell lifelessly to the ground. The remaining guards were visibly shaken by Bearclaw's ferocity. They hesitated, unsure of how to approach this seemingly unstoppable force. Bearclaw took advantage of their hesitation, pressing the attack with renewed vigor. He swung the spear in a broad sweep, the blade cutting through the air and forcing the guards to scatter. Bearclaw's movements were precise and calculated. He jabbed and thrust, each strike finding its mark with deadly accuracy. One guard managed to get in close, but Bearclaw simply shifted his grip on the spear, using the haft to block the attack, and then driving his knee into the guard's midsection, doubling him over. With a swift, downward strike, Bearclaw finished him off. The battle raged on, and the ground was soon littered with the bodies of fallen guards. Bearclaw showed no signs of slowing down. He fought with a cold, methodical efficiency, his spear an extension of his will. Another guard charged at him from the side, but Bearclaw sidestepped the attack, spinning the spear around and delivering a crushing blow to the back of the guard's head. The remaining defenders tried to regroup, but Bearclaw was relentless. He advanced steadily, his spear a blur of motion. He thrust the blade into one guard's shoulder, wrenching it free with a spray of blood, and then swung the haft around to knock another guard off his feet. With a final, decisive thrust, he drove the spear through the chest of the last standing defender, the force of the blow pinning the guard to the ground. Bearclaw stood amidst the carnage, his chest heaving with exertion. The path to the inner sanctum of the stronghold was now clear, the defenders lying in a bloody heap at his feet. He took a moment to catch his breath, the firelight glinting off the blood-streaked blade of his spear. The battlefield was silent, the only sound the crackling of the nearby fires. Bearclaw looked back at his comrades, who had watched his assault with a mixture of awe and respect. They knew that with Bearclaw leading the charge, victory was within their grasp. Falcon's assault. As the chaos of battle unfolded, Falcon, the sharpshooter of the 10 great assassins, prepared for his crucial role. Armed with his trusty crossbow, he moved with the precision and grace of a bird of prey, ready to strike from a distance. His eyes, sharp and focused, scanned the battlefield for targets. He knew that his arrows needed to find their marks to ensure the success of their mission. Falcon found a vantage point on a rocky outcrop that overlooked the wrestling bear stronghold. From this position, he could see the entire battlefield, his enemies unaware of his presence. He loaded his crossbow, the mechanism clicking softly as he prepared to unleash deadly force. With the first arrow ready, Falcon took a deep breath and aimed at the guards patrolling the perimeter. The first shot was fired. The arrow flew through the air with a faint whistling sound, hitting its target with pinpoint accuracy. The guard crumpled to the ground without a sound. Falcon didn't hesitate. He quickly reloaded and fired another arrow, this time striking a guard who had just spotted his fallen comrade. The guard's alarm was cut short as he fell to the ground, the arrow lodged in his throat. Falcon's methodical approach ensured that each shot counted. He moved along the rocky outcrop, using the terrain to stay hidden while finding new targets. The guards on the perimeter were falling one by one, each arrow finding its mark before they could sound the alarm. His efficiency created a path for his comrades to advance without detection. As the battle intensified, Falcon's targets became more challenging. Guards began to move in groups, making it harder to take them down without being seen. But Falcon's skill and patience paid off. He waited for the perfect moment, then released his arrows in rapid succession, taking out multiple guards before they could react. Each shot was a testament to his unparalleled accuracy and calm under pressure. Falcon's role was not limited to eliminating guards. He also provided cover for his advancing comrades. When Lionheart and Panthera were surrounded, Falcon's arrows rained down upon their attackers, giving them the chance to regroup and counterattack. His presence was a silent but deadly force, turning the tide of battle in favor of the 10 great assassins. At one point, a group of guards tried to rush towards Falcon's position, having finally pinpointed the source of the deadly arrows. Falcon remained calm. He quickly reloaded his crossbow, and with practiced ease, he took down the first guard. He moved swiftly, picking off the others one by one as they attempted to reach him. The last guard fell just as he was about to raise his weapon, an arrow piercing his heart. Falcon knew that the most critical moment was approaching. He needed to take out the leaders of the wrestling bear guards to demoralize the remaining defenders. He scanned the battlefield and spotted a group of heavily armored figures shouting orders. Falcon's eyes narrowed. He took a deep breath, aimed, and fired. The first arrow struck the leader in the eye, dropping him instantly. The confusion that followed allowed Falcon to quickly take out the other leaders, each shot precise and deadly. With the leaders down, the wrestling bear guards began to falter. Falcon continued to pick off stragglers and those who tried to regroup. His arrows were relentless, each one finding its mark with unerring accuracy. The battlefield was littered with the bodies of his fallen enemies, a testament to his skill as a sharpshooter. Falcon's assault was a masterclass in precision and control. His actions from the vantage point provided a significant advantage to the 10 great assassins, paving the way for the final push into the stronghold. As he fired his last arrow, Falcon knew that his role was far from over. He would continue to provide support, ensuring that no enemy could regroup or mount a counterattack. Jackal's assault. Amidst the chaos of battle, Jackal, the stealthiest member of the 10 great assassins, prepared for his unique and lethal assault. Known for his deadly precision with iron cards, Jackal moved like a shadow, blending seamlessly into the darkness. His role was to sow confusion and fear among the wrestling bear guards, striking from unseen angles and vanishing before anyone could pinpoint his location. As Falcon's arrows silenced the perimeter guards, Jackal slipped through the shadows, inching closer to the main compound. The firelight from the burning buildings cast flickering shadows, perfect for his stealthy approach. His iron cards were sharp and deadly, each one capable of bringing down an opponent with a single throw. Jackal's first target was a group of guards huddled together, strategizing their next move. From his hidden vantage point, he flicked an iron card towards them. It sliced through the air with a whispering sound and struck the neck of the closest guard. The man collapsed silently, his comrades looking around in confusion, unable to locate the source of the attack. Before they could react, Jackal launched another iron card. It embedded itself in the shoulder of a second guard, who dropped his weapon and screamed in pain. The remaining guards began to panic, drawing their swords and looking around frantically. Jackal used their confusion to his advantage, moving swiftly from shadow to shadow, always staying one step ahead. Jackal's next targets were the guards stationed near the main entrance. These men were better equipped and more alert, but Jackal's skill and stealth gave him the upper hand. He crept closer, hiding behind a stack of barrels. With a flick of his wrist, 2 iron cards flew towards the guards. One card struck a guard in the chest, while the other hit the leg of another, causing him to fall to the ground in agony. Jackal moved swiftly, dispatching the fallen guard with a quick throw of another iron card to silence him permanently. The remaining guards, now fully aware of the lethal threat, tried to organize a defensive formation. But Jackal's relentless assault left them little time to coordinate. He continued his deadly dance, launching iron cards from different angles, keeping the guards off balance and unable to mount a cohesive defense. The effectiveness of Jackal's assault was evident. Each iron card he threw found its mark, reducing the number of wrestling bear defenders one by one. The guards, terrified by the unseen assassin, began to lose their nerve. The whispers of death from the shadows spread among them, further demoralizing the already overwhelmed defenders. As the battle raged on, Jackal spotted a high-ranking officer giving orders and trying to rally the remaining guards. Recognizing the significance of this target, Jackal moved silently into position. With a calm and calculated aim, he sent an iron card flying towards the officer. It struck him in the throat, cutting off his orders mid-sentence. The officer fell, clutching his neck as blood poured from the wound. This decisive blow caused further chaos among the wrestling bear guards. Without their leader, they were directionless and even more vulnerable. Jackal capitalized on this, moving in and out of the shadows, continuing his assault with lethal precision. The guards fell like dominoes, each one a testament to Jackal's unparalleled skill. As the remaining wrestling bear guards tried to retreat and regroup, Jackal ensured that none could escape. His iron cards flew through the air with deadly accuracy, cutting down anyone who dared to flee. The battlefield was littered with the bodies of those who had underestimated the silent assassin. With the outer defenses in disarray and the main compound now vulnerable, Jackal rejoined his comrades. The look in his eyes was cold and determined. He had completed his part of the mission with ruthless efficiency. The wrestling bear stronghold was on the verge of collapse, thanks in no small part to Jackal's deadly assault. As the flames continued to rise and the sounds of battle echoed through the night, Jackal stood with the 10 great assassins, ready for the final push. His iron cards, now blood-stained, had paved the way for their victory. The wrestling bear gang had faced the wrath of the shadows, and Jackal's legacy as the silent and lethal assassin was solidified. Silent shadows. Under the fierce and unexpected assault of the 10 great assassins, the first 2 defensive layers of the wrestling bear stronghold had been shattered. Silverback, the final member to attack, met no resistance as he advanced through the wreckage. Along his path, he observed the lifeless bodies left in the wake of the 10 great assassins' onslaught. A wave of melancholy and pity washed over Silverback as he mourned the innocent lives lost in this brutal clash. Yet, he knew that in the world of gangs, strength meant survival, and weakness led to demise. As he arrived at the heart of the Wrestling Bear headquarters, Silverback joined the other 10 members of the 10 Great Assassins. They gathered, preparing for the next stage of their mission, breaching the third and final line of defense. Each member checked their weapons and gear, armor, crossbows, and shields, ensuring everything was in place for the impending battle. Determined, they advanced deeper into the compound. Their progress was suddenly interrupted when Tiger Claw, the vanguard, triggered a concealed trap and plummeted into a deep pit. Reacting with lightning speed, Silverback seized Tiger Claw's arm and hauled him back to safety, narrowly saving his life. No sooner had they recovered than Scorpio also fell into a hidden pit. Once again, Silverback's reflexes proved life-saving as he grabbed Scorpio by the wrist and pulled him up. Barely a moment passed before Bearclaw too teetered on the edge of a hidden pit. Silverback, ever vigilant, reached out and saved Bearclaw just in time. The series of events happened so swiftly that it left the group shaken, momentarily unaware of how close they had come to death. Surveying the dangerous terrain, Silverback issued a stern command for everyone to proceed with extreme caution. "Be meticulous," he ordered. "Check the ground before taking each step." The hidden pits, scattered throughout the area, were a deadly testament to the wrestling bear's final defensive strategy. These traps were deep and well concealed, designed to incapacitate or kill any intruders who fell into them. The potential for a fatal plunge at any moment heightened the tension among the 10 great assassins, forcing them to move with heightened awareness and precision. Despite the grimness of their mission, the sight of fallen enemies and the near-death experiences of his comrades stirred a sense of sorrow in Silverback. He was a hardened warrior, yet the loss of life, regardless of whose side, tugged at his humanity. The brutal reality of their world weighed heavily on him, reminding him that even in victory, there was profound loss. As they pressed on, Silverback's leadership and quick reflexes were pivotal in navigating the treacherous grounds. His ability to save his comrades from the perilous traps underscored his critical role within the group. It was a stark reminder of the razor-thin line between life and death in their world. The 10 great assassins, now more alert than ever, continued their advance. They knew the path ahead was fraught with danger, but under Silverback's guidance, they moved forward with renewed determination and caution, ready to face whatever lay beyond the final line of defense. As soon as Silverback and the 10 great assassins advanced, a sudden volley of arrows shot toward them from hidden crossbows. The Wrestling Bear gang had anticipated their arrival and prepared a deadly trap. The battle begins. The air filled with the sharp hiss of arrows, forcing Silverback and his team to react instantly. Silverback's voice cut through the chaos, commanding, "Shields up!" The 10 great assassins quickly raised their shields, forming a defensive barrier. The arrows clattered against the shields, some breaking upon impact, others deflecting off the strong armor they wore. The defense Silverback himself led the defensive formation, his shield absorbing the brunt of the assault. His eyes scanned the surroundings, seeking the source of the arrows. The Wrestling Bear gang's archers were well hidden, making it difficult to pinpoint their exact location. The assassins moved as a unit, advancing slowly with shields raised, protecting themselves from the relentless rain of arrows. The counterattack Falcon, skilled in archery, swiftly loaded his crossbow and fired back, aiming for the shadows where he suspected the archers were hiding. Each of his arrows flew true, forcing some of the Wrestling Bear archers to duck for cover. Jackal, with his deadly iron cards, flung them with precision, targeting the spots Falcon missed. Lionheart and Panthera, armed with their short sabers and sword, stayed close to the front, ready to strike at any moment. They moved with grace and precision, their eyes sharp and focused. Cobra and Wolfbane, each wielding their weapons, prepared to charge as soon as the opportunity presented itself. The chaos unfolds. The battlefield became a chaotic dance of death. The sound of arrows striking shields, the shouts of the Wrestling Bear gang, and the commands of Silverback created a symphony of war. Hawkeye and Tiger Claw with their chains lashed out at any Wrestling Bear members who got too close, their movements fluid and deadly. Scorpio with his staff blocked incoming arrows and countered any direct attacks with powerful sweeps. Bearclaw with his spear advanced steadily, using the long reach of his weapon to strike at hidden enemies. His spear thrusts were powerful and precise, forcing the wrestling bear archers to keep their distance. The 10 great assassins moved like a well-oiled machine, each member playing their part in the deadly ballet. The turning point. Despite the intensity of the battle, the 10 great assassins slowly gained the upper hand. Their superior skills and coordination began to show. Falcon's arrows found their marks, reducing the number of hidden archers. Jackal's iron cards disrupted the enemy's formation, causing confusion and panic. Silverback, seeing an opening, gave the command to advance. "Now, push forward," he shouted. The assassins charged with renewed vigor. Lionheart and Panthera led the charge, their swords flashing in the dim light. Cobra and Wolfbane followed closely, their blades cutting through any resistance. Victory. The Wrestling Bear gang, overwhelmed by the ferocity and precision of the 10 great assassins, began to falter. Their once steady stream of arrows dwindled as more of their archers were taken down. The remaining members tried to retreat, but the assassins were relentless. In a final, coordinated effort, the 10 great assassins broke through the last line of defense. The battlefield fell silent except for the heavy breathing of the victors. The arrows had stopped, the archers defeated, and the stronghold of the Wrestling Bear gang lay open before them. Silverback looked at his team, their armor dented and shields battered, but their spirits unbroken. "We did it," he said, a mixture of relief and pride in his voice. "The path is clear. Let's finish this." The 10 great assassins stood ready, their victory over the archers a testament to their skill and determination. The final assault on the Wrestling Bear stronghold was about to begin, and nothing would stand in their way. Preparing to retreat, Silverback looked into the distance and saw a tall figure standing fearlessly. Behind the man were IE and his subordinates, preparing to retreat. The man spoke. "Boss, you should retreat. I'll handle the rest. I'll break every bone of these intruders." IE patted the man's shoulder, moved to retreat, touched by the man's loyalty. On this side, the 10 great assassins intended to act and not let IE escape, but Silverback held them back. "No, we should not pursue them to the end. We give them a way out." The 10 great assassins retreated timely. Silverback guessed that the man standing proudly in front of him was Susie. Eagle had instructed Silverback very carefully to stay away from his grasp if he didn't want to have his bones crushed in just a few minutes. No one in this world had ever escaped Susie's grip. Suddenly, a member of the 10 great assassins jumped out and ran towards Susie, thrusting a spear directly at him. The attacker was none other than Bearclaw. The fierce battle between Bearclaw and Susie. Bearclaw charged at Susie with fierce determination, his spear aimed precisely at Susie's chest. Susie, with his cold eyes, quickly sidestepped, narrowly avoiding the lethal thrust. Bearclaw did not relent, pulling back his spear and launching another series of rapid, precise strikes. Each move was calculated, every thrust aimed to penetrate Susie's defense. At first, it seemed that Bearclaw had the upper hand. His spear moved like a living extension of his body, swift and deadly. Susie had to constantly move, evading the sharp tip of Bearclaw's weapon. Each time the spear came close, Susie would deflect it with a powerful swipe of his arm, his muscles straining under the effort. Bearclaw, sensing victory, pressed his advantage. He spun his spear in a wide arc, aiming to catch Susie off guard. The blade of the spear gleamed menacingly in the dim light, promising a swift end. Susie, however, remained unfazed. As the spear came close, he lunged forward, catching the shaft of the spear with his powerful hands. With a thunderous roar, Susie yanked the spear from Bearclaw's grasp and snapped it in half, discarding the broken pieces to the ground. Bearclaw stumbled back, momentarily shocked by Susie's raw power. "You're strong, but not strong enough," Susie growled, his voice low and menacing. Bearclaw quickly regained his composure, drawing a dagger from his belt. He lunged at Susie, aiming for his throat, but Susie was ready. With lightning speed, Susie dodged the attack and countered with a powerful punch to Bearclaw's ribs. The impact was so strong that Bearclaw felt the air rush out of his lungs, and he staggered back, struggling to breathe. Susie did not let up. He advanced on Bearclaw, each step deliberate and filled with menace. Bearclaw swung his dagger wildly, but Susie caught his wrist, twisting it with brutal force until Bearclaw dropped the weapon. With a swift motion, Susie delivered a crushing blow to Bearclaw's chest, sending him crashing to the ground. Bearclaw tried to rise, but Susie was relentless. He grabbed Bearclaw by the collar, lifting him off the ground effortlessly. With a vicious snarl, Susie slammed Bearclaw back down, his strength overpowering. Bearclaw felt the world spin, his vision blurring from the impact. The battle seemed to have reached its climax. Bearclaw, battered and bruised, struggled to stand. His determination was unwavering, but his body was failing him. Susie loomed over him, a titan of muscle and fury. He raised his fist for the final blow, his eyes cold and merciless. With a final desperate effort, Bearclaw lunged at Susie, aiming to strike one last time. But Susie's fist came down like a sledgehammer, crushing Bearclaw's resistance. The ground shook with the force of the impact, and Bearclaw collapsed, unconscious and defeated. Susie's strength. Silverback thought to himself that Eagle had known all too well about Susie's strength, which is why he had forbidden any member of the 10 great assassins from confronting Susie directly, except for himself. However, Bearclaw, eager to prove his martial arts prowess and compete for glory with Silverback, had chosen to disobey these orders. As Silverback was deep in thought, Susie lifted Bearclaw's body with ease. In an instant, he crushed Bearclaw's body with his immense strength. Silverback, caught off guard, was unable to act in time to save Bearclaw. He had not wanted Bearclaw to die at Susie's hands, but the brutal reality of their world was unforgiving. Silverback felt a pang of regret and anger. Bearclaw had been a brave warrior, eager to show his worth. However, in his attempt to prove himself, he had underestimated the sheer power of Susie. Bearclaw's body lay limp in Susie's grip, the light fading from his eyes. The crack of bones and the final breath from Bearclaw marked the end of a warrior who had been consumed by his own ambition. In that fleeting moment, Bearclaw's life ended, with the harsh reminder of the consequences of defying the plan. The need to showcase his skills and earn recognition had driven him to this fatal encounter. Despite his valiant efforts, he was no match for Susie's overwhelming strength. Reacting swiftly, Silverback ran forward and launched a powerful kick towards Susie. Seeing the attack coming, Susie dropped Bearclaw's lifeless body to the ground and dodged Silverback's assault. Bearclaw's body hit the ground with a thud, a silent testament to his bravery and his fatal misjudgment. The confrontation between Silverback and Susie was now inevitable. Silverback's heart was heavy with the loss of Bearclaw, but he knew there was no turning back. This battle was not just for revenge, but also to uphold the honor and strategy laid out by Eagle. Bearclaw's sacrifice would not be in vain if Silverback could bring down Susie and secure their victory. With a fierce determination burning in his eyes, Silverback squared off against Susie, ready to face the formidable opponent who had just claimed the life of his comrade. The battle for honor and survival was about to reach its climax, and Silverback vowed to fight with all his might to ensure that Bearclaw's death would not be in vain. Clash of Titans, Silverback launched a thunderous punch towards Susie, his muscles coiling and releasing like a tightly wound spring. The force of his blow seemed to make the air itself tremble. Susie, equally powerful and unyielding, responded with a punch of his own, a strike filled with raw, unrestrained strength. The two fists collided in the narrow space, creating a shockwave that reverberated through the room. Both men were pushed back, each taking 2 steps to regain their balance. The intensity of their initial exchange set the tone for the battle that was about to unfold. A clash of titans, neither willing to concede an inch. The first round, Silverback, always the strategist, analyzed Susie's fighting style in the moments after their fists had collided. Susie's power was undeniable, but there was also a brute force in his movements, a lack of finesse that Silverback knew he could exploit. He decided to test this theory, darting forward with a flurry of rapid punches aimed at Susie's midsection. Susie, however, proved to be quicker than he appeared. He blocked the majority of Silverback's strikes with his forearms, deflecting the blows and countering with powerful hooks aimed at Silverback's ribs. The sound of flesh meeting flesh filled the air, each strike resonating with the force of a sledgehammer. Silverback dodged and weaved, his agility serving him well in the confined space. He managed to land a solid blow to Susie's jaw, causing the giant to stagger momentarily. But Susie's resilience was remarkable. He shook off the punch and responded with a crushing elbow aimed at Silverback's head. Silverback barely managed to duck in time, feeling the rush of air as the elbow passed inches from his skull. Testing limits. The two warriors circled each other, each looking for an opening, a moment of weakness to exploit. Silverback knew that brute strength alone wouldn't win this fight. He needed to be smart, to wear Susie down gradually. He decided to switch tactics, aiming low with a series of kicks intended to destabilize Susie and throw him off balance. Susie, anticipating the change, managed to block most of the kicks, but Silverback's speed and precision allowed a few to slip through. One particularly vicious kick to the knee caused Susie to grunt in pain, his leg buckling slightly. Sensing an opportunity, Silverback pressed the attack, launching a high kick aimed at Susie's temple. Susie, displaying surprising agility for his size, caught Silverback's leg mid-air. With a powerful twist, he threw Silverback across the room. Silverback crashed into the wall, the impact sending a cloud of dust into the air. He quickly rolled to his feet, shaking off the daze from the throw. The exchange had proven one thing. Susie was not to be underestimated. Sustained assault. The room they were in provided little space for maneuvering, but Silverback used it to his advantage, leveraging the walls and furniture to launch surprise attacks. He vaulted off a nearby table, delivering a flying knee to Susie's chest. The impact drove the air from Susie's lungs, but he absorbed the blow, grabbing Silverback mid-air and slamming him to the ground. Silverback felt the breath forced from his body, but he rolled away before Susie could follow up with another crushing blow. Both men were breathing heavily now, the strain of the battle evident in their labored breaths. They were testing each other's limits, pushing their bodies to the brink. Mutual respect. Despite the fierce combat, there was a growing sense of respect between the two fighters. They recognized in each other the same unyielding spirit, the same refusal to back down. Silverback, wiping blood from his mouth, nodded at Susie, acknowledging his strength. Susie, for his part, gave a curt nod in return, his eyes blazing with determination. They launched themselves at each other once more, fists and feet flying in a blur of motion. Silverback's speed and agility contrasted with Susie's raw power and relentless pressure. Each man gave as good as he got, neither willing to yield. A desperate gamble. Silverback knew he had to change the dynamics of the fight. He decided to take a gamble, feinting a punch to Susie's face and instead dropping low to sweep his legs. Susie fell for the feint, and Silverback's leg connected with his, sending Susie sprawling to the ground. Silverback immediately pounced, aiming a series of rapid punches at Susie's head. But Susie was not so easily defeated. He blocked the punches with his massive forearms and with a roar grabbed Silverback by the waist, lifting him and throwing him across the room once more. Silverback crashed into a wooden cabinet, splintering it on impact. He struggled to his feet, aware that his gamble had only bought him a momentary advantage. Power and precision. Both men were now visibly battered, their bodies covered in bruises and cuts. The intensity of their battle had taken its toll, but neither was willing to back down. Silverback, drawing on his reserves of strength, launched another attack, this time combining speed with precision. He aimed for Susie's vital points, striking at his joints and pressure points. Susie, though slowing, responded with his own brutal efficiency, delivering crushing blows that threatened to break Silverback's bones. The room seemed to shrink around them, the walls closing in as their battle raged on. The turning point. In a moment of clarity, Silverback saw an opening. Susie's relentless assault had left him overextended. With a burst of speed, Silverback closed the distance, landing a powerful uppercut that snapped Susie's head back. Before Susie could recover, Silverback followed up with a series of punches to his ribs and kidneys, each blow driving deeper into Susie's defenses. Susie, gasping for breath, tried to counter, but Silverback was relentless. He drove Susie back, step by step, until Susie's back was against the wall. With a final desperate surge, Silverback launched a spinning kick that connected with Susie's temple, sending him crashing to the ground. The aftermath. Silverback stood over Susie, chest heaving, the echoes of their battle still reverberating in the room. Susie lay motionless, his body battered but not broken. Silverback knew that Susie's resilience meant he would recover. But for now, the fight was over. Silverback looked around at the devastation they had wrought, the remnants of their fierce combat strewn across the room. He felt a mixture of relief and sorrow. As he walked away, Silverback knew that this fight would be remembered not just for its brutality, but for the mutual respect forged in the heat of battle. Both he and Susie had given their all, and in doing so, had found a measure of understanding in each other. The war between their gangs would continue, but this clash would stand as a testament to their strength and resolve. The unyielding grip. Silverback believed he had finally subdued his formidable opponent Susie and took a moment to catch his breath amidst the ruins of their battlefield. But suddenly, with a speed that belied his massive size, Susie sprang up and wrapped his powerful arms around Silverback in a crushing embrace. The suddenness of the attack left Silverback reeling, and he instantly realized the peril of his situation. The grip tightened with a force that seemed unearthly. Silverback felt his ribs begin to give under the immense pressure. The sound of bones creaking filled the air, and every breath became a struggle. Susie's strength was overwhelming, and Silverback's vision began to blur as the lack of oxygen took its toll. The struggle. As Susie's vice-like grip constricted around him, Silverback's mind raced. He knew that if he didn't find a way to break free, he would be crushed to death. His thoughts turned to his training, to the inner reserves of strength and willpower that had seen him through countless battles. He focused on the energy within him, the internal power that had always been his greatest asset. Silverback tried to pry Susie's arms apart, but it was like trying to move steel beams. The grip was unyielding, and every effort seemed futile. His muscles strained, veins bulging with the effort, but Susie's hold only tightened. A surge of power. Just as despair began to creep into his mind, Silverback felt a surge of energy from deep within. It was as if his body had tapped into a hidden well of strength, a reservoir of power that had lain dormant until this moment of dire need. He focused on this newfound power, drawing it up and channeling it into his limbs. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, he began to push against Susie's crushing embrace. The change was gradual, but it was there. Susie's eyes widened in surprise as he felt his grip being forced apart, something that had never happened before. The realization that Silverback was breaking free filled Susie with a mixture of astonishment and rage. Breaking free. With a roar that seemed to shake the very foundations of the building, Silverback summoned all his internal strength and pushed outward. The force was immense, and it felt as if he were trying to move a mountain. Susie's arms trembled with the effort to maintain his grip, but the inexorable power of Silverback's internal energy was too much. Suddenly, with a forceful burst, Silverback's power exploded outward, sending Susie sprawling backward. The impact was like a bomb going off, and Susie was thrown several meters away, crashing into the debris with a thud. The counterattack, Silverback didn't waste a second. As soon as he was free, he channeled his internal energy into a powerful punch aimed at Susie. The energy coursed through his arm, and the force of the blow was tremendous. Susie, still reeling from the sudden release, barely had time to register the incoming attack. The punch connected with Susie's torso, driving him back even further. The impact was so strong that it left Susie gasping for air, his ribs feeling the brunt of Silverback's power. But Silverback wasn't done yet. He followed up the punch with a powerful palm strike, his hand driving into Susie's chest with a force that surpassed even the initial punch. The crushing blow. The palm strike was devastating. Susie's body was lifted off the ground and propelled backward, crashing into the wall with a sickening thud. Blood spurted from his mouth as he crumpled to the ground, the force of the strike overwhelming his formidable strength. Silverback stood over him, breathing heavily, but his eyes were filled with determination and resolve. Susie struggled to get up, his body racked with pain. He had never encountered such raw power, such relentless strength. He looked up at Silverback, seeing in his eyes the indomitable spirit that had carried him through this brutal battle. Despite his injuries, Susie knew that he was facing a warrior unlike any other. A moment of reflection, Silverback, though victorious, couldn't help but feel a pang of sorrow as he looked down at Susie. This was a fight for survival, for honor, but it also highlighted the brutal reality of their world. Strength determined fate, and in this moment, Silverback had proven his dominance. Yet, the cost of this unending cycle of violence weighed heavily on his soul. He took a deep breath, feeling the pain in his ribs and the exhaustion in his muscles. The battle had taken everything he had, but he had emerged victorious. He knew that this was just one fight in a much larger war, and that more challenges lay ahead. The aftermath. The battle between Silverback and Susie had been fierce and unrelenting, but in the end, Silverback's determination and inner strength had carried him through. The room around them bore the scars of their confrontation, with walls cracked and debris scattered everywhere. It was a testament to the ferocity of their struggle and the indomitable will of the warriors involved. Silverback took a moment to gather himself, looking around at the devastation. He knew that this was a pivotal moment, a turning point in the conflict between the gangs. The defeat of Susie, one of the most feared and respected warriors, would send a powerful message to all who opposed the 10 great assassins. The fallen warrior Susie lay on the ground, his body battered and broken. He had fought with everything he had, but in the end, it wasn't enough. He looked up at Silverback, his eyes filled with a mixture of pain and respect. Despite the outcome, he recognized the strength and determination that had led to his defeat. "You fought well," Silverback said, his voice filled with a rare note of admiration. "Few have pushed me as far as you have." Susie nodded weakly, his strength fading. "You're a true warrior," he replied, his voice barely a whisper. "It was an honor to face you." The legacy as Silverback turned away, he knew that this battle would be remembered. It would become part of the lore of the gang world, a tale of strength and resilience. Susie's name would be honored for his bravery, and Silverback's for his victory. The war between the gangs would continue, but this moment, this clash of titans, would stand as a testament to the power and determination of both men. Silverback walked away, his body aching, but his spirit unbroken. He knew that there would be more battles to fight, more challenges to face. But for now, he had proven his strength, and he would carry that victory with him into the future. The fire of the battle still burned in his heart, driving him forward, ever ready for the next fight. The evolution of Silverback. The scene was chaotic and filled with the remnants of battle. The remaining members of the 10 great assassins stood around, catching their breaths and taking stock of their victory. The destruction of the Wrestling Bears headquarters was complete, and the ground was littered with the fallen. As they surveyed the scene, one of the assassins spoke up, breaking the heavy silence. "Why didn't you kill Susie?" The voice echoed through the broken walls, filled with confusion and a hint of disappointment. Silverback, standing tall and resolute, looked at Susie's battered form lying on the ground. His cold eyes betrayed a glimmer of something deeper, compassion perhaps. He turned to face his comrades, his voice steady and calm. "We have won. The Wrestling Bears headquarters is destroyed. Many innocent lives have been lost. There is no need to kill him." Falcon, always the most perceptive and close to Silverback, stepped forward. "You seem different from the Silverback we knew over a year ago. You show compassion. Before, you were cold, aggressive, and bloodthirsty. Did something significant happen to you?" Silverback's expression softened slightly, but he didn't elaborate. He simply nodded, acknowledging Falcon's observation without giving an explanation. The truth was, Silverback had undergone a profound transformation, one that had reshaped his outlook on life and his place within the gang world. A path to compassion. Silverback's journey from a ruthless, bloodthirsty warrior to a figure of mercy and introspection was not an easy one. It began in the aftermath of countless battles, where the weight of the lives he had taken began to press heavily on his conscience. He had always been a fighter, driven by a need to prove his strength and assert his dominance. But over time, the endless cycle of violence and death began to take its toll. He started to see the faces of those he had killed in his dreams, innocent and guilty alike. The nightmares were relentless, a haunting reminder of the path he had chosen. Each night he would wake up in a cold sweat, the cries of the fallen echoing in his ears. It was during these sleepless nights that Silverback began to question the true cost of his actions. A moment of clarity. The turning point came during a particularly brutal battle. Silverback had cornered a young warrior, barely more than a boy, who had fought valiantly to defend his gang. The boy was injured and terrified, his eyes wide with fear. Silverback raised his weapon, ready to deliver the final blow, but something stopped him. He saw the boy's eyes, saw the fear and desperation, and in that moment, he hesitated. For the first time, Silverback saw his own reflection in the boy's eyes. He saw the path of destruction he had carved, the countless lives he had taken. He saw himself not as a warrior, but as a monster. Lowering his weapon, he let the boy go, walking away from the battle with a heavy heart. The reality of gang life. Despite his personal evolution, Silverback knew that the gang world would never fully embrace his newfound ideals. The life of a gang member was inherently brutal, marked by constant struggles for power and survival. Mercy was often seen as a weakness to be exploited. Yet Silverback remained steadfast in his beliefs, striving to find a balance between his compassion and the harsh realities of his world.
Driving me